And then I'm going to let you go and, I don't know, be young people and create. So, let me do my bit. Please, 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 let me do my bit. And then I'm going to let you do your bit. Okay, so we're going to look at this thing. This thing. Let me go to the front page and say what this thing is. Alright, it's called the Feudal System. Now, does anyone know what that is without any yes?
Is it like the menu?
Oh, take the microphone.
Is it like the system, like the government, sort of like the government system, but like medieval?
Yes! That's kind of exactly what it is. So, it's a system, it's a government system, that was a good word to use. Does anyone else want to explain? Does anyone else? I'm going to throw it, but that probably won't work, and I'll smash everything. There you go. Mike, it's yours. Go.
Is it a little bit like the class?
Yes! Yes! Oh, this microphone is making you all smart. I really like it. Anyone else? Alright, so, we talked about our mate. So who was our king that invaded? William. And he was? French. Okay, now, do you remember that video that we saw real quick? Pork. And the other one, what was it? Harris or Garrett or Hey, yeah. And we talked about all these words, ladies. We talked about all these words that the French brought in. So they brought in stuff. Okay, they brought in words. They brought in castles, which we'll talk about a little bit later. They also brought this thing in, called the feudal system. So we'll explain this. It's actually really cool if you're on the top, and if you're on the bottom, yeah, it kind of sucks. But so it's the name for a power structure, all right, where people held their land in return for promising loyalty, known as doing homage. Anyone want to guess at that word, or should I define this sucker? Bow! Define. All right, so homage is special honour or respect shown. So they paid homage to the local who became president. Mastery work written in homage to Beethoven. Historical form of public acknowledgement. Basically, you paid homage to this person or to somebody for providing services such as working or fighting for their lord. Does that make any sense? Yeah. Probably not. Oh, it does?
Yeah, it does.
Alright. So let me... Oh, and there'll be lots of Lego. Because I like... When I was like your age, I had Lego castles.
Lego is fun.
And it was the best thing ever. So that's why I'm doing that. Okay. So let me explain. So I need to explain. I need your undivided attention, ladies. Alright, you should be smiling. Look at the knife. Look at how scary it looks. Okay, so this is what we've got here. So we've got, in the 20th century, historians used to describe medieval government in terms of ranks. So basically, we're describing the government back then, now. This is how we describe it now. Okay, so back then, they may not have used these kind of terms, alright, or this way of describing it. So we're describing something that's old. Alright, so what we've got here is there were basically ranks.
A hierarchy?
Yes, good word. Okay, hierarchy. So there's a rank. Alright, so we've got king, number one. Then we've got barons. Then we've got knights. Then we've got peasants. Okay? That is kind of how the medieval government worked in terms of that ranking system. Who wants to give us the equivalent of today? Got the mic? That's a little bit.
Okay, is it king, and then the barons would be first class?
Oh, no, I'm saying, before we explain this, I want to say, today, how would we have, what kind of system do we have that's maybe similar to this?
Well, we've got king government.
So you're saying government's on top of everything? Yeah, okay, and what do you think would come next? Should I take the mic? Anyone else want to have a go? What do you think we have equivalent? So, maybe I should explain this more. Maybe that's why it's a bit tricky. Okay, so we've got the king. So the king is the ruler. The king rules all. Like we said at the very start of this system, okay? The king was the boss. There was no one more powerful than the king. The king was kind of in line back then with God. Alright? How this system worked. The king said it, it happened. Below the king you had barons. Okay, so these are very, very powerful people. Below the barons you had the knights. Now we kind of know who knights are. You know, they wore all the armour, they fought. Okay, so they're kind of like the army. And then below the knights you had the peasants. Now peasants were the people. They were generally poor. Okay, they worked the farms, they worked the land. Do you want to go?
No, you spelled it wrong.
What? What did I
You
spell
said
wrong?
Feudal System.
Ah, did I? Come on, but I did the lesson in like an hour and a half. Come on, give me some time here. So the feudal system. Wait, what did I spell it wrong? Did I?
Big writing.
I'll update that book. I'll update that book. So close.
Number 3, is that the dumb? What is it supposed to be?
We're not up to number 3 yet. So close. But come on, whole new lesson, all original, hour and a half with Lego. Okay, so these are the 4. So Sam's going to give us the equivalent of what we've got today. Kind of, if you can. Really quick.
The king, prime minister.
Yep, that's probably a good one.
Barons, probably the rich, like the.
Ooh, I would say maybe Parliament.
Yeah.
Under the Prime Minister. Yeah.
And then the knights.
Police.
Yeah, or maybe like sort of the not rich, but like sort of like
Business.
lawyers and business.
Okay, yeah.
And then peasants are like.
Us. Alright, cool, thanks Sam. So yeah, good stuff. So it's kind of tricky. Like it actually is really hard to do this now, which is good. It's good that we don't have this system anymore, which I'll explain why. So, this is what happened. Okay? In the feudal or the feudal, whatever I wrote at the top there, system. Actually, what is that? Does that even mean anything? Let's have a look at what that is.
It says
No definition found. There we go. I invented a word. I'm like the Normans. Okay. So this is what we've got, lads, ladies. So, this is kind of how it worked. So, you had the king, alright, and I've got pictures. So, the king ruled and protected the country. That's his job. To rule over the country and to protect it. And by protecting it, it didn't mean exactly like if there was a war, he would run out and he would defend everybody, okay, which he still kind of did. But he protected the country by sending out knights, by fighting wars, by getting taxes, by all this kind of stuff. That's how he protected the country. Like we would think our Prime Minister, whoever the heck it is right now, because I have no idea who our Prime Minister is. Do we have one? Yes. Is it Kevin? But wasn't he Prime Minister already and they fired him? I'm confused.
Yeah, we've got the
Alright. Okay. So, we have a Prime Minister, ladies, and we're not exactly sure what they're doing at the moment. So, that was the king. Yes, that was the king. Ruled and protected the country, lads, ladies. Remember, I need to give you this information so I can let you go. Okay? Then we had the barons. So the barons supplied an army of knights when there was war. That was the baron's job. Alright? They supplied the army. Alright? And then we had the peasants, and they did all the work. Alright, so the peasants did all the work. That was the peasants. Okay? And that was their structure. That's how everything happened. Alright? So, if we have a quick look at little old image here, we've got...
Alright, the king's
Yeah, he's that king. Hey, if you were the king, you'd be like, yeah, you know, I don't know why he's doing that. He just looks like he's really chilled out. I mean, he's got a goblet of wine, so he's clearly had a few. Alright, let's move on from what the king looks like a slave. So, he was a slave. Alright, so the king at the top. Ladies, Alicia, you really need to pay attention. Alright, just... Okay, king at the top, looking all drunk. Then you had the barons below him. Okay, then below the barons you had the knights, and then below the knights you had the peasants. So it is kind of like a bit of a pyramid. Okay, that's how it worked. Let's get this down here. So, what we've got is, however, so William the Conqueror, we're going to look at this thing called a doomsday book, but not yet. Okay, so there was some truth in this system that they've talked about. Alright, all medieval people did pay homage, so when a nobleman declared his loyalty to the king, promised to be loyal to their lord, and there were no rules or restrictions on the power of the king. So in other words, king's laws. He can do whatever he wants, always. You know, our Prime Minister, whoever it is, still has rules to follow. Okay, he's still going to do what the government says, what the people says, what his electorate says, what the people who voted in. He has to technically kind of follow these laws. Alright, king can do whatever he wants. So, This is what we've got. William the Conqueror's Doomsday Book, which we're going to look at later, shows medieval society was much more complicated than that theory, that simple little 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a bit more complicated. Alright? And historians nowadays believe that the feudal system never really existed. Okay, so we're talking about the feudal system, but we're getting this bit of information now saying that, you know what, everything we're going to talk about now, it actually may not have really worked like that. Okay, so I'm just giving you that bit of information because you know how I like fact-checking, you know how I like looking at other sources. That's kind of the source that we've got now. Alright, so in theory, this is how technically this would have worked. Technically, this is correct. Alright, the government of William the Conqueror was absolute. So, all the power. Anything he said goes. So, king at the top there. Alright, he was a new king who owned all the land. When you're a king, okay, the entire, everything, all that land is yours. King owns it all. Okay, it's not like now. Again, yes, we've got a prime minister, or even if we look at England, they still have a king and a queen. They've got a king, but they still got a king and a queen in that system. Okay, but the people in England own their land. I own my land. Where I live right now, it's mine. Okay, your parents' houses, their land, they own it. They pay mortgages, they pay it off. But once it's paid off, it's theirs. The government can't take it off them. Okay, does that make sense? We own our land, yeah? Alright, back then, that didn't happen. Mitch?
The government can still seize houses if they have to knock them down.
Yeah, like that thing they're doing at the moment with the highways. Yeah, they can, but that's, I mean, you can overrule that, and that's just...
And they can do mining onto a house.
Yeah, I know. But technically it's mine. Like, they can do that, but they've got to compensate me for it, and it's not easy. Yep.
You know, you actually own like 1.6 metres below the ground.
Really?
Yeah. So if you dug up
How do you know that
1.6
information?
metres, then you'd be on public land.
Really? That doesn't seem like much. That's like...
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah,
if you
yeah,
find
yeah.
gold, you know that's claim it, but you just have to use
Really?
it.
I've dug a hole deeper than that.
That's
It's called my garage, yeah.
Because
Yeah, I
people were
guess.
saying, oh, why are people in China walking on my land? Yeah, anyway, so...
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. We'll look into it. But anyway, so back to where we're going. So the king owned everything. He owns all the land always. It was his. No matter what happened, the king owned the land. He owned England. Okay? Not like today. We own our own land. So this is where this works. So what happened is he owned land and he ruled as he pleased. So he did whatever he wanted. Over the next millennium, this absolute authority was challenged and defeated. So this actually changed. Obviously, as we know now, English government is different. Okay, Britain chose instead a system of government where power goes bottom upwards from the people to Parliament rather than top down. Alright, so does that kind of make a bit of sense? So back then, it was top down. The king owned the land, did whatever he wanted, he was in charge. Nowadays, it's switched around. Okay, so now the power goes from the bottom upwards. Alright, so Parliament, the people, we kind of make the choices, which is a good thing, you think, yeah? I'm kind of happy that we can kind of make the choices. Alright, so let's have a look at what we've got here. So this is kind of how it worked back then. Alright, so we had one king. So this is all of England, or Britain. One king, about 180 barons with their little fancy hats. Had about 3,000 to 5,000 knights. Alright, and then we had about 2 million peasants. That was the entire kind of population. It wasn't many people. But that's how it worked. I mean, that's a lot for this guy to have control over. He has control over all of this. He's the boss. Does whatever he wants with all of this below here. Okay, so that's how it worked. So, pretty good deal to be a king back then. Alright, so, sorry?
No, you can just say that everyone.
Yeah, he could say everyone needs to hop on one foot. And you do it because he's a king and he'll kill you. Alright, so 20th century historians thought you could trace the roots of the feudal system back to the 8th century. So in other words, what they're saying here is this system, this feudal system, it was new to England because our mate brought it in. Alright? But it's quite an old system. It goes back a long, long, long time. Alright, so I won't go into all of that now, but it goes a long, long time. So, now we're getting back to a date that we know here. So some historians said the feudal system developed throughout Western Europe, particularly in Normandy. So, the feudal system's in Normandy. Isn't that right, Clay?
Yeah.
Excellent. Alright, so this is what happened. We know this date here. So, William, Duke of Normandy, conquered England in when? 1066, we know that date. Alright. He confiscated all the land from the Saxons who owned it. Alright? And distributed it amongst the barons. So this is what this guy's done. Not only has he taken over the country, he's now gone, hey, I'm keeping my land, because this is the system you're now doing. It's like saying if somebody invaded Australia and decided we're now all... Someone give me another...
Afghans. Afghans.
No, you're giving me races. I want a system of government.
Dictatorship.
Thank you. Or...
Monarchy. Monarchy.
Communism.
Communism, thank you very much. Alright, so it's like if... So we'll talk about communism next year, because it's actually pretty cool, though if I said that 20 years ago I would have got arrested. I don't like communism. It's cool. It's a system. So anyway, so what's happened is, this guy has come in, taken over the country, and then gone, right, your entire system is gone, I'm king, you're doing this now. So you're doing the feudal system, and the feudal system says the king has all the land. So what he's done, he's come in, alright, all mine. Everyone's land is now the king's, they don't own it anymore. He's the king. Okay? And he distributed it amongst the barons who had supported his invasion. So what he's done, he's a great bloke. He's come in and he's going, cool, alright, I've taken over England, it's mine, all the land is mine, and he's gone to his barons, okay, these are the second most powerful people, he's going, you know what, you guys helped me out with that whole invasion thing, here's a chunk of land. There you go, nice land. Alright? And he gave away all this land, i.e. England, to these barons. He said, you can have this, you can look after it. He still owns it. King didn't give it to him for nothing. The king still owns it. He's like, here you go, you can look after this land for me. Because you're nice blokes. I won the country, I'm paying you back, you know, mates right. So, he gave this land to these barons. Alright? So, what happened next after that? So, barons have got this land. Alright, they've all got it. So then what he did, which we'll look at a little bit later, is he made this thing called a doomsday book. Well, that's what we call it. But basically what it was, have you ever had the people... Oh, do you know? Is that what they have? No, I spelled doomsday right. That's how you spell it in this term. It's not doomsday as in the end of the world. Okay, that's spelled differently. Okay, this is what they call this book. Alright, so... I think actually it'll tell me, if it tells me why they've gone, let's see if I can do it, if it works for me. Bang! There we go. So, you can see...
Yeah, Domesday.
It's spelled a couple of ways. So, good catch though. It's spelled a couple of ways, but spelled this way, as in D-O-M-E-S-D-A-Y, is referring to this book. Okay? That word is for that book. So, good catch though. Alright, anyway. So, he's done this book. Now, have any of you guys... Again, you may not have it. Have any of you guys had someone knock at the door? They do it once a year, and they're from the Australian. Thank you. They're from the census. Anyone had that? Yeah. Have you seen the questions?
Yep.
Does anyone want to say what some of them are?
How many people have you got living in your house?
Yeah, it's like how many people you've got living in your house.
Yep.
How much? It's not like how much money you're earning.
Yeah, it's pretty basic.
And it's just like all of the most personal questions
Yeah.
you can get.
Exactly. What religion are you? What do you do this? When do you do that? What do you do on the weekends? It asks all these questions. Alright, so it was like...
question to ask, what do you do on the weekends? Because like, it's not like you got to set.
Why do they care? Why do they care? So guys, why would they... So why does the Australian government do this?
Because they make statistics.
For what?
For the nation.
Yeah, but why...
More money.
But why do these statistics help?
Oh, I got it.
Hold up.
So they can find out more about the people and
Yes.
change the laws to suit them.
Yes, alright. They can find out... Oh, Clay's dying. Here we go.
To make more money.
Yeah. Well, the government's not technically making money.
Also, like, it can also help with big businesses because sometimes they're like release the statistics.
Yes. Okay. So Sam probably nailed it. Which again, Sam, what did you say?
They ask questions about the people so they can change the laws to suit them.
Yeah, I'll do what you said the first one. Is to gather this information to kind of figure out how the people, how us as a people, what do we do? What do we like? What do we like doing? Are we all Catholics? Are we all Muslims? Are we all it's to find out these numbers to hopefully then start changing the way we do things. Like if they, I don't know, did the survey and they discovered that everybody doesn't drive a car anymore, why they're spending millions of dollars on roads.
That'd be pretty noticeable.
Yeah, but
How's
anyway, so what William did, what William did in 1086, which we'll look at a bit more later, he did this thing. He sent out surveyors to every part of England, alright, and these were his 4 questions. They were a bit more in depth. This is basically what he asked in his survey. How much land? So how much land is there? Who owned it in 1066? Who owned that land then? Who owned it now? What was the place like? Is it nice? And who lived there? How much was it worth in 1066 and how much was it worth now? He basically wanted to know about the land and who had it. This little survey. He asked a bunch of other questions, but we're going to go into more detail later, so I didn't want to spoil that book here. So, although the Doomsday Book actually described a bewildering muddle of different ways people held their land, historians suggested it had a basic structure. So here we are again, back to these 4 people. Alright, this is why I'm going on for this, because you're going to be doing something in a second. The king owned all the land. We talked about that. The king gave some of the land to the barons if they promised to give him money and men for an army. So here's the king. We've got our nice barons, and he's like, alright barons, tell you what. I'll give you this nice land, great views, got a river, ducks and stuff. I will give you this land if you promise, to give me money back, because I like the stuff, and I also want you to give me men for an army. That's the baron's job. So, to keep the land that the king gave him, he then had to give the king money and give the king an army. So essentially knights. That's what the baron had to do to keep his land. So the baron's like, sweet. So, the barons gave some of their land to the knights. So the barons are like, cool, alright, I've got all this land, and I need to get knights to give to the king so I can keep it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of my land and then give that to the knights. And the knights are then going to fight for me, who then I give to the king. Are you kind of following it? It's a bit tricky. Alright, so you've got, this is where I should have my whiteboard too. Yes! So we've got barons, king at the top, barons is like, alright, here you go barons, here's a big chunk of land, only if you give me money and knights. The baron's like, alright, cool, I'll give you knights, but how I'll do that is I'll take some of my land and give it to the knights, and then the knights will work for me, and hence they'll work for the king. So it's kind of about. So here's the problem. Then, we've got the knights. So the knights have land, thanks barons, from the king. So what do the knights do? The knights then give a little bit, of their land, alright, to large numbers of these guys. Ash, word of the day? Now with thee, do you want to give it a go? There are so many V words. It is blade. Alright, basically, it's a peasant. But it's a peasant in the feudal system. That's what they call them. Alright, peasants as a word is generally a whole, we're all peasants, we're all poor people. Alright, but in the feudal system, this is what they were called. Alright, it's a French word, I think. Alright, so then the knights have given a little bit of their land, alright, just a small bit, to a whole stack, alright, large numbers of peasants. Alright, so that's how we've done this. And so, what those peasants then do is they work on the land, they farm it, they grow crops, all this kind of stuff, they make money. Alright, they give that to the knights give it to the barons give it to the king. So everyone's happy, except the peasants, because they get nothing. All they get to do is be alive. Yeah, eat, sleep, make babies. That's kind of their job. Alright?
How are babies made?
That would be a book that you ask your parents to make for you. Possibly with pictures, I don't know. At another time, because we're moving on. So let's wrap this up, because I really want to do this and move on and hopefully not make a video that you're thinking of. So here's what we got. We've got barons we've got kings at the top, or we have a king, Luke, our King William at the top, brought this system in, takes over England, brings it in, right, I'm the king, all the land is mine. Yes. Then he goes, alright, a little bit of land to my barons who look after me, and they will keep that land if they give me cash, and they give me an army. King needs an army. Cool. Barons go, right, need an army, I'll give a little bit of my land to these guys, these knights, They will work for me, which I will then give to the king. They're happy, they've got a little bit of land as well. The knights then go, alright, I'm going to give the puniest amount of land I can to the biggest amount of peasants, like they shove them in there. Alright, and they will work on that land, and they will make money, and they will make crops, and then they will give that to me, I'll give it to the barons, I'll give it to the king. Everyone happy, except peasants, because they couldn't leave, they were stuck, they were like slaves, they weren't free. Alright, that's the feudal system in a nutshell. Does that make sense? And this is how they ran the country. Whoa. Yeah, no, we'll get to it in a second. We're having a break in a minute. So this is how they ran the country, by doing this system. It's pretty efficient. I mean, if I was a king or a baron, pretty sweet. If you're a knight, yeah, it's probably alright until the whole crusades and head shopping stuff. But peasants, not the best. So that's what happened. So let's wrap this sucker up. It seemed to historians that the feudal system was a way in which a king could rule a violent society, alright, with access to a large army of knights, whilst the majority of the population provided them with resources to do so. That is the whole reason why he did it. So, this is a good one. He could rule a violent society. Again, we're talking 1,000 odd years ago. The world was different. Okay, people were different. You know, the way we ran the world, the way people acted, like it was a very violent society in terms of you would die when you were about 25, generally old age. You know, you didn't have medicine, you didn't have all this kind of stuff. You had wars, you had people invading every 5 minutes because they wanted to take over the country. It was a very violent society. Could you imagine running something like that with the rules that we have now? It's like, you know, the knights come in, alright, you're allowed to kill his head as long as you do it on the left side of the road. And you're only going 40 k's an hour. And then, you know, you've got to do this. Oh, no, you can't invade that country because you haven't written them a letter first. And, you know, the UN are involved. So, it would be very complicated to run a violent society with the rules that we have. It just wouldn't happen. So this was simple. It was really, really simple. Alright? I could be king back then. Really, really easy to do for a violent society. And it kind of worked. So, the feudal system gave early medieval knights an army. So, yay! The feudal system was the basis of the medieval class system. This is a good one. It defined who were the haves and who were the have-nots. So this system has kind of defined the fact that if you were a king, if you were a baron, and then if you were the baron's son, or if you were the king's son, you were now privileged. If you were a peasant's son, you got nothing. You're never going to have anything. Alright? If you're a peasant's son, you were always a peasant. You were never going to be anything else. Okay? If you're the king's son, you're going to be king. That's awesome. Okay? So it's that haves and haves not. It's a class system. And again, this is something we've moved away from now. You know, oh Jared's from here. I'm way into Downton Abbey right now. Like, I'm seriously loving this show. No one talk about Downton Abbey. I'll be so upset. Mary's just married the cousin David and stuff. It's really confusing. Anyway, so we had that for a long time. They had this system where if you were an earl or if you were a baron, you know, you were rich and then you had your slaves. And anyway, we'll talk about Downton Abbey at another time because I really want to. So, that's the feudal system. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I think the key things to take away from this that are interesting and that are important is how it works. King at the top, all the land. Bit of land to the barons who then give him knights. The knights get peasants and da da da. We know that, yeah? Excellent. And the main thing being, it was a way in which a king could rule a violent society and have an army. So it was really cool. We need a break. We need a break. Watch.
Monopoly, the board game that lets you invade England, just like William the Conqueror.
Okay, I'm king. Bagsy may be the crown.
Bagsy's the sheep. Why do I always have to be the wild pig to slay?
Your chance to experience all the thrills of conquering England.
Oh, I've landed on Hastings and brutally killed thousands of Saxons. Best build a church. Show God I'm sorry. Actually, I did spill an awful lot of blood. Best make it an abbey.
And if you don't like the names of the towns, you can just rename them.
Excellent. I'm now the Baron of Nottingham.
Just take off the S and call it Nottingham.
Much better. Wooden castle, please.
Do you have what it takes to keep England conquered?
Actually, better upgrade to a stone castle. might last longer.
Are you ruthless enough to deal with the disgruntled Anglo-Saxons?
Community card, my favorite. The English are rebelling in the north. You have to wipe out the entire community. Oh, you got to love this game, isn't it?
And the great thing is, you can just make up the rules as you go along.
I think I will collect 200 silver coins from the villagers as tax.
Cheeky 7-7.
Nor Monopoly. There's no such thing as playing fair.
Oh, I better build another church. I'm about to do something really bad.
You need to work on your evil laugh, boss.
What is wrong with it?
Nor Monopoly. Satisfaction guaranteed, or your country back.
Never going to happen.
Bunch of little hints in there which we'll talk about a bit later. The one where he's talking about a church, you're going to build a church, and what he's going to do there. What he does there is terrible.
What does he do?
We will find out later, Mitch. We will find out later. Oh dear, it's exciting times. So that's our buddy William. We're going to talk about him for a little while longer. So as you saw in that Monopoly, the king did whatever he wanted. Like, they can make towns, they can name stuff, they can ask for taxes, they can do whatever they want. They were cool. Alright, here we go. A little bit more, then you're on your own. Because I think you're getting this. Oh yes, we watched Dennis the Constitutional. Though I did have to spend 20 minutes editing it to get rid of a couple of words. Alright.
It's not that.
Oh, they say bloody and I thought it may have been misinterpreted. Alright, so, interpretations. This is a... Who knows what interpretations mean? We know this one. Interpretation test.
It means how somebody interprets, so how somebody sees it.
Bang! Thank you very much. Okay, so interpretations. People can have different interpretations of a few things. You can have different interpretations of me. Some people might think that I'm a tad, like, eccentric and fast and hyperactive. Other people just might think I'm... No, that's pretty much all of it. So, the feudal system was a term invented by historians to describe a particular theory of how medieval power was organised. So, again, this is the word that we use. This is kind of important. Alright? Because I don't want this to get confusing. So the feudal system is a term invented by historians. Okay? So in other words, back then, they didn't call it that. The king wasn't going, I've got a feudal system. Alright, he was just going, I've got all that now. So that's the term that we use for this system. We call it the feudal system. So the king didn't call it that. I don't even know if he had a name. He probably would have called it William's cool thing. It is important to realise that medieval people did not talk about the feudal system. They didn't talk about this. Okay? They didn't actually go back then and go, oh, there's 4 classes and there's the kings and the barons. Oh, damn it, I'm a peasant. It wasn't like that. It wasn't transparent like that. Okay? The term feudal only became common about the time of the French Revolution, which is awesome, but you'll learn about that in year 10/11, to describe laws that were unfair and out of date. That's what we called it. Okay? Out of date. The idea of the feudal system became popular in the 1960s when books by the French historian Marc Bloch were published in Britain. So in other words, we started calling it this. Okay, you get that? Yeah? Yeah. This is something, this is a history, this is a very history thing to kind of grasp. That when we use words like the feudal system, it's something that we, as historians, are calling this thing that happened. Have you got that?
It wasn't actually cool.
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one to get. Like, I think that is really tricky. To understand that a lot of these words are words that we give for things that happened. Like, when people were living in, let's call it the Middle Ages, they weren't going around going, oh, it's 20th of January, Middle Ages. Okay? We called it that. I thought that was a good joke. With the middle, like on their watch, it's got MA. Like 27. Alright, fine. I will edit laughter in the video. I will do it. Okay, so it still appears in many school textbooks, which claim it was the system of government in medieval England. So these are interpretations. These are what people have interpreted from this thing. Hollywood films about medieval times often show medieval kings as half-mad feudal tyrants. I won't talk about the films, but films look at this system and go, oh, the king's all powerful and he's crazy. Monty Python, the Holy Grail, has a spoof scene where King Arthur tries in vain to give orders to a group of peasants who have set up a commune and take turns to be the ruler. Alright, so in other words, and it's there. It took me a while to find it too. Everything changes. So, In 1994, historians and reals argue successfully that there never was a feudal system in the Middle Ages. Nowadays, many historians think that the feudal system was just a propaganda myth about, put about by knights to show themselves as heroic warriors. When poor people began to write in the 14th century, they portrayed themselves as sad, suffering people who were forced to work to keep their lords in luxury. So, everything we talked about, feudal system, all that, alright, other people are saying, hey, wait, actually that may not have happened. Okay? So, I just want you to have that in your mind as well. We're still going to stick to the point of, yeah, this is probably what happened, you know, because that's what we're looking at. Alright? But, might not have. Other people are saying, you know what, this may not have happened like this. But when we look at our research, we've got a lot of people saying this is probably how it went. Not as many people saying that. So, 10 years from now, when I'm still jumping around making iBooks, feudal system could be completely different. You know, they may have decided, no, this is not how it works. It's completely different. Okay, so another bit of a break, and then we're moving on to what we're doing today.
Ma'am, sorry. What knight lives in that castle over there?
I'm 37.
What?
I'm 37, I'm not old.
Well, I can't just call you man.
You could say Dennis.
I didn't know you were called Dennis.
Well, you didn't bother to find out, did you?
I did say sorry about the old woman, but from behind you looked...
What I object to is you automatically treat me like an inferior.
Well, I am king.
Oh, king, eh? Very nice. And how'd you get that, eh? By exploiting the workers. By hanging on to outdated imperialist dogma which perpetuates the economic and social differences in our society. If there's ever going to be any progress...
Dennis, there's some lovely filth down here! Oh! How'd you do?
How do you do, good lady? I am Arthur, King of the Britons. Whose castle is that?
King of the who?
The Britons.
Who are the Britons?
Well, we all are. We are all Britons. And I am your king.
I didn't know we had a king. I thought we were an autonomous collective.
You're fooling yourself. We're living in a dictatorship. A self-perpetuating autocracy in which the working classes...
Oh, there you go, bringing class into it again.
Well, that's what it's all about. If only people would...
Please, good people. I am in haste. Who lives in that castle?
No one lives there.
Then who is your lord?
We don't have a lord.
What?
I told you. We're an anarcho-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week.
Yes.
But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting.
Yes, I see.
By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs.
Be quiet.
But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more...
Be quiet. I order you to be quiet.
Order? Who does he think he is?
I am your king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
You don't vote for kings.
Well, how'd you become king, then?
The Lady of the Lake, her arm clad in the purest shimmering samite, held aloft Excalibur from the bosom of the water, signifying by divine providence that I, Arthur, was to carry Excalibur. That is why I'm your king.
Listen, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. Supreme executive power derives from a mandate from the masses, not from some farcical aquatic ceremony.
Be quiet!
Oh, but you can't expect to wield supreme executive power just because some watery tart threw a sword at you.
Shut up!
Oh, but if I went round saying I was an emperor, just because some moistened bint had lobbed a scimitar at me, they'd put me away.
Shut up! Will you shut up?
Ah, now we see the violence inherent in the system.
Shut up!
Oh, come and see the violence inherent in the system. Help, help, I'm being repressed.
Bloody peasant!
Oh, what a giveaway. Did you hear that? Did you hear that, eh? That's what I'm on about. Do you see him repressing me?
That probably made no sense, and that was fine. That is what multi-python is about. But it may have made a little bit of sense to maybe 2 or 3 of you, probably your parents. That's why I put it in there for some extra love. Okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we are doing today. So, do you like my title? I thought it was really... Hey, what a sketchy! Lights, camera, feudal system. I was happy with that. So, the feudal system. Alright, it can be a little bit tricky to explain in words and pictures. We did that, we explained it in words and pictures, and hands up if we all got it. 90. Bryce, still on the fence. Where are you? No, you got it. Reese, you get it. Kind of how it works. Yeah. Alright, we're going to go over it later, but yeah, we're kind of getting there. It can be tricky because it's an old system. It was all about pyramids and kings and all that kind of stuff. So, this is what we're going to do. You guys, I might pick the groups on this one, I haven't told you. You are going to write and direct your own little sketch. Sketch being a little small 2-minute sketch thing, video, whatever. For some reason I say sketch and, skit, and Miss Breton doesn't like it. Explaining what the feudal system is and how it works. In a little video, okay? How you explain it is up to you. You can use drama, you can make it very like, very detailed and drama. You can use action, okay? You can use comedy, you can use dance. I'm going to get someone to do dance. How you do it is up to you, okay? Just because I was so impressed with your little show the other day, it was good, even though I had to fix it up. Did anyone watch that video of those guys? It's on the blog, it's actually really good. Alright, so, this is what you're doing. You guys, and by you guys I mean possibly a group of 3, are going to write and direct a movie on how the feudal system works, what it is and how it works. I'm thinking this thing only needs to be like 3 minutes max. Should be able to explain it. Alright, here are some ideas. You know, we talked about you've got the king on top, you've got the barons, you've got the knights. Maybe you're doing some little thing where the king is trying to explain the feudal system to somebody else and he's sitting there trying to explain it being all kingly. Yeah, and if someone doesn't get it, he cuts his head off because he's the king. Or maybe you're like a peasant and you're, I don't know, being a peasant and the knight comes along and he says, why you need to harvest potatoes? And he's like, why? And he's like, because I'm a knight and I like potatoes and I need them to be strong. Why do you need them to be strong? So I can fight for the barons. Why are you doing that for? Oh, because he made me work for the king. But why? Oh, because the king's at the top and he's really powerful and stuff. Yeah, you get what I'm doing here. Wow, that was a one-man show. Completely up to you. As long as it explains the feudal system and how it works. You can use props, you can use diagrams, you can do stop motions, you can do videos, you can do whatever the heck you want, which is why this is good. But it's up to you, and it needs to do this. Explain the feudal system and how it works, okay, in like a 3-minute video. So think of this video as like an introduction, my first feudal system, that you could play to possibly some Year 7s, Year 5s. Did you guys remember doing Year 7? Actually, let's do it. So 5, 6s, alright, because they're doing history as well. So these videos need to be easy enough that they will pick it up and they will go, ooh, feudal system, and they'll understand it. Alright, my first feudal system. Alright, excellent. That's what you're doing. I put something a little bit special in here at the moment, which is what? Alright, so this is just an interactive little widget where you can type stuff in here. You can type your script, and then you can do cool stuff, like you can like type it in, right? No, I was really excited by this. Like, you type it in, and once it's done, see the little, oh, you can't see it up there. In the top corner, you can save it to the cloud, or you can submit it, or you can email it to me, or you can put it on Twitter, or you can put it on Facebook, or I was just, interactive. Anyway, so you can do that, so we'll pinch that down. But you don't obviously have to use it, it's just there, because it was way, way cool, and it saves online, so you don't lose it and stuff like that. So, your script is obviously the first thing you're going to do before your film, so I want you to write your script out. So what I said here is you can use this little notepad, that's fine, write it in there, and you can email it to me, but also make sure you put it into your course notes in iTunes U. Obviously I haven't updated iTunes U yet, so we're not going to do that step just yet. Write the script. So you can write it in pages, you can do it wherever you want, just as long as it's in that book and in iTunes U when I set it up when I get back to my desk. That's it! That's what you're doing. Live camera feudal system. That could be a game show. Any questions? Any questions for live camera feudal system? I copyright that name. Yes?
Will we be in groups and so groups of what?
Oh yeah, groups of 3. It's a good amount. Alright, groups of 4. See, this wouldn't happen in the feudal system because I'm the king and I said 3, so it's 2, 3. Alright, groups of 4. Groups of 4. Should I pick groups?
No.
Really? Oh, but sometimes you're not the best in groups. Okay, alright. This will be it. Here we go, guys. You choose your groups of 4, and this will be the defining factor of these videos. If these videos are amazing and the greatest things I've ever seen in my life, Jordan, then, oh, that one. Jordan 2. Oh, Boy Jordan. Yeah, Jordan. Boy Jordan. Boy Jordan sounds like a band. Boy Jordan. Oh, Boy Jordan. It's like Boy Jordan. Yeah. Anyway, so, what we're going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, so you pick your groups. These videos, lads, ladies, these movies, these videos will define how we work in groups from now on. Okay? So they're going to be good. Alright, that's it. Lights, camera, feudal system. Write your scripts. Do it in pages, do it wherever. Eventually you're going to give it to me or you're going to put it in your iTunes. You course notes, that's fine. You can use that notepad thing there because it's cool. You have the rest of this session to write your scripts, to figure out what you're doing. Lads? Aaron, the rest of this session to figure out what you're doing, to write your script, to figure out your ideas, your actors, your twists, whatevs, which is only like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Next lesson, we'll have time, Sam, we will have time to finish the scripts and to film everything. I'm hoping we'll do that in one session. Alright? Remember, it's only 3 minutes. So, today, work out if you need to bring props, costumes, whatever, okay? When we film, you're not running around wasting that time. So, you need to bring any props or costumes or Lego or however you're going to do this. Think about it today. Alright, let's go. You're on your own.